Hello everyone, I'm Matt Mitchford, the alternate historian, and I am back again with my wife Alana.
Hi!
And we are here to talk about Outlander Season 2, which just last weekend was its season finale. So I guess we'll just begin with a quick plot summary. I'm going to do it because I don't like how Alana does it. And,
It's okay.
So we kind of left off pretty much where we started off where the season 1 left off, where they're sailing to France to sort of convince the Bonnie Prince Charlie to give up the idea of invading Scotland and everything like that, or in some way at least sabotage his plans. And so the first half of the season is pretty much that, where they're in Scotland and they're they're sort of conniving with the prince, trying to at one point trying to be his friend and loyal ally, and at the same time trying to sabotage everything he does. And I'm going to go really quick because we'll talk more about the details as we go on. But at the end of season 1, Claire was pregnant. It's Claire, right? Why suddenly did I? Don't say yes like that.
And Jamie.
Yeah, we'll get on to that. So Claire is pregnant, but sadly she loses the baby when she attempts to stop Jamie from having a duel with Jonathan Randall. He came back.
Electric.
Yeah. So in the end, they feel successful because they managed to stop the prince from getting a lot of money. So they think like maybe Scotland's safe. So they go home after getting a pardon from the French king. But there they find out that all their efforts to prevent the war have failed. It's the Prince Charles has landed his army. He united the clans. They're about to attack, and Jamie, while they're all upset, Jamie's like, well, just because we weren't able to prevent it doesn't mean we still can't win, because we still know what they did wrong. We can still use that to our advantage. And so the rest of the story is all Jamie and Claire trying to work to do their best to actually get them to win the battle. And I guess it's not too much of a spoiler alert.
Although we're totally spoiling here.
We're gonna
Spoilers,
totally. It's fine. Spoilers.
You had to have seen this.
You have to have seen this. If you're not gonna, we're not gonna see. You're not gonna worry about that. So here's your last chance to get out. Spoiler alert: the battle is still lost by the Highlands. The Battle of Culloden.
Yeah.
Yeah. They fail miserably, and Claire actually in the process goes back home to the present, where she ends up being pregnant again, and Frank Randall, her husband, he takes it surprisingly well. Even though he gets a little angry, he takes it very surprisingly well. So at this point in the story, this is actually the first episode, so it gets kind of confusing. We see her back in the present, or her present, the 1940s, right after everything starts. So you almost know ahead of time. 1948. So you almost know ahead.
It's been 3 years.
Fair enough. So you almost know ahead of time how the story of the season's going to end, which makes it kind of interesting. And eventually there's a flash forward to like the 60s, 1968, 20 years later.
Exactly,
Frank's dead. Their daughter, who Claire was pregnant with before she went back to her present, they're in Scotland, and Claire is sort of like reminiscing about the past, and her daughter, was it Brianna?
Yes.
Is thinking her mom might be like has cheated on her dad in Scotland now to sort of like find him, and eventually Claire tells her, I went back in time and your father's the guy from the past who was killed in the Battle of Culloden, and she doesn't believe him, thinks she's crazy, and long story short, they end up proving it to their daughter and her boy toy or new boyfriend or whatever the kid, what was his name, Roger, yeah, after
Roger
they see
Mackenzie,
which we'll get to that. After they see what's her face, Gillian from the first season, who got killed, who was burned as a witch, actually go back in time to the time, back in time.
She started her time.
To her time travel, which Claire technically went back in the past before, because Claire was older and from an earlier time period, but Gillian technically got to the past first, if that makes sense. It's time travel. Just go with it.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much where season 2 left off. Because the big twist at the end of it, the big issue, not the whole thing that Gillian went back in time, not the fact that Roger Mackenzie can trace his lineage to the child that Gillian gave birth to before she died. Interestingly enough, making Roger the great grandson of Gillian. and McDougal Mackenzie, and not McDougal. The big issue is that they found something in the archives, Roger and Brianna, that showed that Jamie is still alive. He did not die at the Battle of Culloden. Culloden?
Yes. He's one out of the 5 people that were captured that he escaped, and everyone else.
Well, there was many people who were captured in
Yeah.
the battle. Just there was a specific incident where some
Yeah.
people were holed up and he survived. So he didn't die. And now Claire, with her really bad old lady makeup, wants to go back in time now. And that's a pretty good plot summary, I think. Just a general question, Elena. What do you think?
I thought it was great. The whole season was great. I loved France. I loved the details of the dress, especially the red dress, which was a huge deal if you've read the book, which I'm halfway through the book, that it was very risque, and Jamie's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Not prude, but conservative. And he's like, you can see your navel, and he's so offended, and she's like, no, this is what French ladies are wearing.
No, not in the show. Did you not see a
Yeah,
well, you'd see
she stood out a little. There was a little boobage.
There was the queen or whoever that was wearing, literally showing her breasts.
It was like underneath her boobs, and then there was 2 pasties.
That wasn't even much of a pasty either. You saw nipples.
That was the nudity that was considered nudity in the morning before the show. Yeah. That was the only nudity that was in that episode.
Yeah.
Which is really funny. So anyways, I love the detail of the dresses, and I found the Frenchmen, to be hilarious. That they were just so... Can I
metrosexual?
Yes, I was going to call them pansies.
Pansy's a swear word?
I don't know.
You were about to say, can I swear? Pansy's a swear word?
I don't know, but that's what I thought. They were just such whips.
I've seen people go to me and say, when I say, I'm so pissed, and they're like, don't say that's a swear word. I'm like, really?
Okay.
Pissed is a swear word?
Sorry.
Pansy
I don't want my preschoolers to say pissed, okay?
They don't want to say pansy either.
I don't want them to say that either. So anyways, I just thought those guys, why would any girl would have been interested in those guys, but they act like more girls themselves. I don't know.
I guess that was just the thing.
That was the thing in France, I guess. I don't know. So I love that Jamie stood out as this rugged, strong husband and man. I love the points of where Catholicism showed up. How the nuns had Mary over Claire when she lost the baby. How she was very respectful of the nuns, even though in turn she wasn't a practicing Catholic, even though she said she is Catholic. I don't think it would say in the show, but in the book she does declare being Catholic.
Okay.
Several times.
In the show,
yeah, in the book she definitely declares it. That she's not Protestant, even though she's English. She is Catholic.
Yeah.
So I love those little touches. And you see more of those touches in the book because she volunteers at the hospital basically because she felt like she couldn't handle just being...
While she was in France.
Yeah, because in the book it describes more about how she does not enjoy just being a lady of the house, and she didn't know how to order maids to do things, and she's like, you all seem to got this under control, I'm going to go do something else. And so at least in the book you see more times where she's... more descriptions about patients she's taking care of and stuff like that. So they're not really important to the story, which is why I can see why they only showed a little bit of her volunteering there. But in the book, she eventually goes on bed rest. What was I going to say? So I like seeing her volunteer at the hospital and things like that. What was I going to say? I lost my train of thought.
Well, I'll go and talk about kind of what I like, and then we'll come back to you. As an alternate story, and their time travel is obviously a big important part of this story, although it plays a smaller part in most episodes because she's there and she's trying to. But what was unique about this, in the first season, she was just sort of trying to survive. She sort of she wanted to get back, but at the same time, she really didn't know if she could. So she was also trying to sort of make the best of it, and that's fine, but what I liked about season 2 was she was being more active. She was thinking more, as Doc Brown would say, fourth dimensionally, and she was thinking all right, I want to save my husband. The only way I can do that is to change history. And so that was something enjoyable about both halves of season 2 was that that she's using the knowledge that she's gained from her present to potentially change the past. And that's fine. A lot of time travel stories involve that, either preventing the past from being changed or changing the past. something that kind of bugged me though is that she was really sort of like, oh, I have to protect Frank. Frank's innocent in this. I want to make sure he at least is alive. So, one of the things she said later when Jonathan Randall shows up again in France, how she makes Jamie, promise that he won't try to kill him in a duel or anything. And it's like, because, you got to wait until Frank's ancestor will be born, then you can kill him. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, well, wait a second. If you prevent the Battle of Cologne, and if you prevent the destruction of the Scots, the Highlander Scots, not Scotland, obviously that didn't happen, don't you potentially change anything, you potentially wipe out Frank's existence. Hell, you can wipe out your own existence. Simply because people change. People who should have died live. People who should have lived die. People who should have married someone else, and they had children, blah, 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 blah. You pretty much wipe out everyone by changing anything. So it would seem sort of like, I'm not sure if that was just the character not thinking it straight, not thinking about it correctly, or whether that was just the writers the writer Diana, what's her name? Diana you can say it. Go ahead. Gabaldon? Let's go Gabaldon. I don't know if it was just her, because I didn't read the book, so I have no idea how that goes down. So I have, or as the writer,
it's pretty much the same in the book, because that's why I brought up that conversation that we have had several times now, where I was like, maybe she was always meant to go back in time, and these things happened because she was back in time, and that's the way it was. Yeah. And so it didn't matter. It was an endless cycle of her being back in time, making this happen in the first place. Yeah, it's a deterministic kind of view of time travel, where essentially anything that can happen or will always happen. So if you going back in time, you won't. It's fine. The universe will be okay because you were meant to go back in time. You're meant to participate the way you are, and history will play out even with your involvement in the past. You see it a lot. There's a famous Twilight Zone episode. No, I don't know the name, where a guy literally goes back in time to kill Hitler. That famous time travel question, and no matter what he does, he can't do it. Not that he doesn't have the will. It's just something always intervenes to prevent him from doing it, and that's an old story, the going back in time and not being able to change anything and end up causing the events that you tried to stop. Right. Yada yada. Again, so I feel like with this show, they're sort of going with that. Like Claire, her travels to the past won't really change anything. Right. She's part of it. She's just a part of it, and that's just how it always is. She might not know exactly what's going to happen next to her personally, but the events and the broad strokes, or even not even the broad strokes, even the tiny details, won't be changed. She'll have her part to play. She might not know what her day-to-day is going to be like, but history, as it's written in the history books, will always be the same. Right. So that's an interesting part. But I did like how they were really trying to make an effort, and it kind of got me thinking like what if they did prevent the Jacobite rebellion from happening? This one in the 1740s. What if in the later half of the season though they actually were able to be successful and actually got Charles Edward Stuart and the Jacobites and the Highlanders that were successful? What would that have mean for England? Now we even talked about, or Britain I should say at this point, and we talked about that a little. We try not to talk too much about it because we want to record these things, and we do plan to do more. But right now we're just on Outlander. We had talked about that, I kind of brought up the fact that he wasn't really, even if he somehow. Here's the thing, he didn't really have that much support. There was no great upswelling of Jacobite support when he invaded. Certainly the Scotland was pretty strong behind him, but the similar rebellions in England did not happen, at least not in any great numbers, and there was just way too many British soldiers versus his rebels. And even if, a lot of armchair generals say that, Bonnie Prince Charlie was, part of his issues was he was so hesitant, and if he had been more decisive and he had attacked when he hesitated, he might have taken London even. But it's all right, that doesn't mean though he would hold the country. He would still have to defeat all the armies, and if they decide to fight him, they fight him, and he could still lose. And if he is somehow defeat them and gets London back and puts his father back on the throne, great, but that still leaves you with a Catholic monarch of a family who got kicked out twice, out of a mostly Protestant country that would still have most of its army opposed to the rule, and you also would have probably people in England not exactly liking the fact that they were not occupied by Scotland.
So it wasn't the recipes for a very stable restoration at that point. But, that's putting the Stuarts back and throwing a finger is a very popular ultra history trope. Maybe one of these days I'll actually do a video discussing it in detail, but that's kind of what I took out of it. I mean, I know there's more to the show than that.
You enjoyed all that history.
I enjoyed the history.
I just enjoyed, I enjoyed the love, the romance. I feel like there was a little bit of less of that than there was in the first. Now that I went back and rewatched the first season a little bit, I didn't finish it before our free trial with Starz app ended, but I watched the first half of the second season, and that was our first half of the first season again. And I felt like the love and the passion that was there in the first season, they kind of pulled that out and stuck more to the cause of solving or stopping the Jacobites and that kind of thing, and the money raising and stuff. And so there was a little less of the love. I don't know. I just really liked Jamie.
Yeah, I know.
And I like him.
You and most
not very clothed. And so I'm enjoying myself. I don't know. But sorry.
It's alright.
But I also enjoy I enjoy Jamie as a character. I enjoy his protectiveness of his wife, the love he has for his wife. I mean, he immediately loved her when he married her, and about 3 episodes after the wedding, they said "I love you."
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So he just had right, but he just had such respect for family and for his wife and his honor and his name, and I just love that about him. I love, this is another small thing, that they took on a little boy that he found that was being, was originally a thief. He took him on, basically, they call him a page boy in the book. They never really use that term in the show, but he was a page boy, and but at the end of the season, they called him their son, and they because she was going to go back, and so she, made sure that he knew that they sent him off on an errand.
Well, they sent him back to Jamie's family's
so he'd be safe.
Estate.
And wouldn't die during the battle.
Well, not just supposed to be safe, but also to deliver that deed that gave the whole land and made
to his nephew.
To his nephew, and made him essentially the lord of, what was it, Lallybrook?
Yeah, which unfortunately fell apart eventually. Someone got taken care of it at the end. But she went there.
Again, those manor houses, when you no longer need feudalism, and there's no real point to keep a manor house going.
Yeah.
You saw, because you watched that show,
Downton Abbey, and it falls apart.
And it's not just Downton Abbey, but a lot of them was the whole landed aristocracy of Britain. Not really adapting well to the changing times and their way of life, so disappearing. And I know the show sort of makes you feel sorry for them.
Let's not even start Downton Abbey, because that is my show. We're not even going to go there.
But being a liberal Republican, not Republican in terms of Republican in terms of form of government, not political party. Being the liberal Republican that I am, I really don't care that their way of life is my part.
Right.
Great.
Okay, we're not going to start with one of my favorite shows of all time that never should have ended, but we're going to go there.
You gotta end eventually.
I know. So I am excited that I found out Outlander gets picked up for 2 more seasons. I cheated, and I'm not going to say this in front of Matt or anyone else. It was spoiled, but I did go ahead and read the summary of every book that's coming.
Why?
Because I'm crazy, and I just I'm the type of person that reads the last chapter of the book first.
Fair enough.
And then I read the book. So I'm crazy to begin with. The other thing was, though, with the book, it started completely different than the season. And so that was very off-putting for me as well. That the book starts with them being in 1968 and her coming back with Brianna and things going on. I want to say they were there for the first 2 chapters or so, were maybe 3. It looks like we're all her, Brianna, and Roger going through the history, and they spent a little more time explaining it. And so it was very rushed, the scene we saw of them being there and her finding out things compared to the book. And so I thought that was interesting, but I am excited they picked up 2 more seasons. I kind of know where it's going already, and so my complaint, I'll evaluate the book a little bit here. My complaint with the books is that they're kind of hard to read. Not hard like I'm not capable of reading, because I have a master's degree in reading, but I'm just saying it's just kind of slow at some points. like it's describing the land, or as much as I enjoy fashion and fashion history, I'd rather see a dress than read about it.
You're supposed to imagine it.
It doesn't do it for me, and you're taking up too many pages reading it. This book could be cut down. A quarter of this book does not need to be here.
Well, I haven't actually read the book, so take whatever criticism I have of what she's talking about with a grain of salt.
So, and sometimes it's just endless talking, and like just like social things of like politeness and stuff, and I'm like, let's just get to it. And they pulled a lot of that out because they only have so many episodes to show the show in an hour-long episode or whatever they are. True. So that makes sense. And so it's my same complaint with the first book as with the second book. However, reading it after finishing the season, all of a sudden it sped up for me. Like, usually I read a chapter a night and I'm like dragging. Last night I read 3 chapters because now I don't know if it's because I know what's going to happen or if I'm excited to see the difference, but all of a sudden I got really excited and couldn't put it down.
Tangent. Do you think it's going to make things easier for people who are waiting for Winds of Winter to come out now that they've already pretty much seen most of the plot points in the last season?
Maybe. I found Game of Thrones easier to read after I've read it. So I haven't read that Game of Thrones. I've read the first book and I listened to the second and third book. And I did find them easier to deal with when I'd already seen the seasons.
We'll talk more about that when we do our Game of Thrones.
I don't know what it is. It's about the way they're written, or that I'm the type of person that I like a 200-page, quick little fun little fiction novel and I want to be done with it. And these are like really heavy and really long, and I've read like 3 other books while reading this book. Like, I've had to put it down and read something else. She's a great writer. They're great books. Outlander story, whether it's the book or the shows, are great stories. But I don't know. I just find it very heavy to read. And I don't know if it's because it's summer and I want to read something lighter and fun, or what. Maybe this is a good, like, lay by the fireplace and drink hot cocoa type book. You know, it's cold Scotland. I don't know. But it is kind of heavy for me. But I'm going to finish it next week when we're on vacation.
Awesome.
Which means we're not going to talk the whole time.
Yes, indeed.
I'm also addicted to the coloring books. I like to adult color. Don't laugh. Matt thought this wasn't a thing. Adult coloring books.
This is less. Thoughts on season 2.
I'm promoting all Outlander.
Oh, I'm not geeking out about Outlander.
Yes, totally geeking out. That's fine. So I love it. So I highly recommend coloring books for relaxation and stress, specifically the Outlander coloring book. Although I have a Game of Thrones one upstairs waiting for me, but I highly recommend the Outlander one. I did find that there's an Outlander cookbook. That I would love to sample a few things so that maybe when we watch season 3, we could have some snacks that are Scottish themed. So maybe we'll get that cookbook by the time we have season 3 come out.
Maybe. We should get back to the show a little bit.
I know, but I'm reading the books. I like to compare.
All right.
Just like you've read some of those other books we talked about.
Fair enough. Let's talk about something I didn't like about the show. I sort of touched on how I wasn't sure whether Claire's like urge to want to change history to save Jamie, but at the same time make sure Frank is still born, was just poor writing on the part of the author or the show's creators, or just the character itself. That's a criticism, but it's more of a nitpick. I could sort of understand even if it doesn't really make sense, the emotions behind it. What I didn't like though was Brianna, or at least the actress who played her.
Yes.
And again, this isn't a
pretty girl, but
her looks has nothing to do with it. That's the problem. Again, this shouldn't be construed as a personal attack against the actress. I'm sure she's a wonderful person. But I just felt like I felt like she looked like a high school actress being told to emote. I didn't feel like anytime she was on screen talking, I was immediately taken out. It felt so like I could tell
like she was forced, or almost I felt like she was being fed lines.
Yeah, it's like
someone's on the side of the camera, like whispering to her.
I wasn't watching a character; I was watching an actor, and that sort of took me out of the show. Which is kind of like I never had that issue with any other characters, male or female, in the show. It's just this character was just like I don't.
The show sucks you in.
Yeah, it's just like this one. It just took me out of it. It's like I'm watching a show now, and this is an actor, and it's not an actual character. And it's just like, and some of the things they had her character do, and maybe this is in the book, and fine, but it sounded like at one point she was like, after Claire had told her, you're like, oh, I went through time, and your dad's actually this 18th century Scottish guy. And she didn't believe her, and that's perfectly normal. But then at one point she's like, I wish you were dead instead of my dad, that being Frank.
I don't remember that being said in the book. Now, I read the beginning of the book with that scene a long time ago. Maybe I should go back and read the first chapter, but I don't remember that part.
And I thought that was just so horribly mean-spirited. I mean, I understand that, she just got... I mean, even if you could dismiss her mother's talks about time travel as sort of a delusion, fine. But even then, she's still your biological mother. And even if she did have an affair, like Brianna started telling herself, it just seemed like just such a mean-spirited thing to say. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously Frank knew about this and might not have been okay with it, but obviously raised this girl as his child and treated her as her child. And
yeah, they were really close, it turns out.
Yeah, and was a good parent to her.
Claire was a little more absent.
So it's just like, you got issues with your mom, fine, but I wish you were dead kind of thing. I don't know if what Claire did, even if you take out the time travel and that kind of stuff, is warrant of a I wish you were dead kind of thing. I can think of a lot worse things that a parent could do to a child to get that kind of reaction. Not, I cheated on your dad and you're, not a biological child. But then again, you brought up the issue, the fact that, with adopting children, how it's important to tell them so from the beginning that they're adopted, because it can lead to issues down the road if they find out later on.
And granted, this was the 40s, which back then, even back then, like 80s, and we're finding out now that it's healthier that the child always knows that they've been adopted, instead of the whole, sit down and being told you're adopted, even when you're 18, 19 years old, and you're an adult and you're finding this out. And so even though she's with her biological mother, and she technically had, a stepfather, I guess, and he didn't even adopt her, I'm sure when she was born, they just said they were together at the hospital and that was it, and they didn't go through any sort of adoption thing.
No, I'm sure he just said, this is my kid, and that's it. No one's going to question it.
But the reality is, she just got sat down and told that somebody who was her biological parent was not her biological parent. And so it's that whole discussion that, you never want a child to sit down. And so I just remembered our adoption classes, and stuff like that, being told that. And I agree with you about Brianna. Everything you said, I completely agree with.
And you did sort of let loose that she's going to be a character.
I'm sorry.
And I really, again, I don't know the name of the actress now, so my apologies, but I'm sure she's a wonderful person. I'm sure she maybe in other roles that she's had, she's done well.
She needs to step it up.
Maybe I'll do some more research and find that out, but I just was not impressed by her acting ability. She really seemed like she was phoning it in. She really seemed like she was just not giving it all, and it really sort of made this end of this, which essentially was the season finale, which was supposed to be this big episode and make you want more for the next one, and to have this character just acting the way she was, it's just it really sort of made it one of the worst episodes in my opinion. Until then, it would have been a great episode season.
If they had used a different actress, or she was better at being an actress. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have a comment about the whole Randall, or Jonathan Randall, being kept alive thing when you're done too.
Okay, but I want to go through a couple things here.
Okay.
A couple things, comments on the time travel. That one point, that sister, the one who ran the cathedral, the hospital in the cathedral. There we go. At one point, she says, "Oh, I just been talking to my friend Johannes Bach." And you talked to Bach? It's oh yes, he's a musician, but he'll never last the teammates. It's all crap. And I'm that's a common
I love those nods.
That's a common but it's an old joke.
I enjoy it.
It's an old joke where it's someone goes to panic goes, this will never catch on, even though it will.
Well, it was just like that scene that from The Passion. That's which you haven't seen.
That is not the same thing.
Where he's it is the same. Well, sort of, because it was a nod of he built a table and chairs, and Mary was this will never catch on. People sit on the floor to eat, and he was no, Mom, this is going to be a thing.
Yeah.
It was funny.
Yeah.
I thought it was a nod. It was funny.
A little levity, and when you're watching somebody get tortured.
Okay, let's not even go there. But I think those kinds of things in shows that are, Outlander's kind of serious too.
Right.
So
it was definitely the best performance of the Passion of Christ done by an anti-Semite.
Okay. Can you not? Can you just I just pointed out another example where I liked how that happened. Okay. I just like those nods when like you're in the history
and I find that
someone invents something or does something and you're like, no, that's not going to be a thing. And it was just like Picasso. Hold on, no, it was just like Picasso in Doctor Who, where like he thought his paintings were terrible. And
Picasso?
Not Picasso. Van Gogh.
Good.
Van
You're
Gogh.
definitely a Whovian.
Van Gogh thought it was a cool
whole
thing.
exhibit at the Art Institute.
We did. It was beautiful.
And it's like the Picasso.
I'm sorry. It's getting late, and I still have to run an errand.
Oh.
So where was I with this? Oh, where he, they like said, no, your paintings really are a thing, and da da da. And I just think that I like those kind of nods.
They weren't making jokes with that episode of Doctor Who. It was never meant to be a joke. It was meant to be a serious look at this character, and that whole thing with the Bach, that was a joke.
Okay, it was funny.
Wait, let me finish. That whole thing with the Passion of the Christ, it was a joke. You see that joke over and over.
Okay, well, that's not enough watch enough time travel as you do.
Well, think the Back to the Future, the first one. It's your cousin, Marvin Berry. You know that new sound you've been looking for? That whole, that was a famous rock star he was talking to.
Okay. I think they're funny. And I like it.
But I've just seen so many of them, they're sort of like, they're more groans than they are chuckles. It's more like, oh, really?
Would you call this a trope?
It's definitely a trope. I'm not sure if I'll ever do it. It might. Time travel is going to work with alternate history, but that was sort of like a groan-worthy moment. It's like, really, we're going with that? This random sister in Paris just happens to know this amazing German composer. Yeah.
She was originally German, that's why.
Germany is a big country.
I'm just saying, she was German.
It's like, what does that even mean? It's like, oh, she's German. So was the how many other thousands millions are German?
Whatever.
How did she know?
I want to get back to my point soon, so hurry up.
Where did she find the time to start having a pen pal relationship with
and
the
play
composer?
music in the cathedral at some point?
Fair enough.
I don't know.
Whatever. It's just very convenient. Wait a few years and they would run into Mozart.
Yeah, man.
What else? I think that's all the one big thing I wanted to touch on. What did you want to talk about with Jonathan?
Oh, so going back to Jonathan Randall, where you were like, oh, you have to keep him alive till his ancestor's born.
His descendant.
His descendant was born or whatever, and that was like bothering you and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, in the book, it's actually more of where Jamie ends up agreeing that their conversation's longer, and they spend time discussing, like, he said, Jamie says, I just agreed with you in the end because if the Battle of Culloden goes downhill...
Right.
I know, we're terrible Scottish people.
We're not Scottish!
Know, that's exactly,
what is that supposed to mean?
Exactly.
That has nothing to do with pronunciation of words.
I'm trying to get my story out. He said that I want to make sure you have a man to go home to and to take care of you if something happens to me. And they spend more time talking about that in the book. So I feel like the show didn't do that whole conversation and that Jamie's whole thought process justice as it does in the book of I need to make sure Frank stays alive because I may not survive this and Claire needs to go home and be, home.
Fair enough.
And so that was something that's more discussed in the book. So that's probably why you had that issue and I didn't because I had read it already and was like, yeah, okay.
One more thing on Jonathan Randall as we were talking about him. There was near the end where his brother, what was his name?
Alex.
Alex? Really?
Yes.
Alex Randall, he's dying, and Claire is helping his girlfriend, soon-to-be wife,
Fiance.
Well, sort of, yeah, that's a better word. Take care of him, and then Frank shows up, and Frank, does threaten Claire, because he's like, don't let your hatred of me cause a good man to suffer, because Alex is actually a good man.
He's a great
You show him he's pretty much the opposite of Jonathan Randall.
He's probably the only one that Jonathan Randall truly loves and cares for.
Which what I was sort of getting for, which makes it even more interesting with the fact that Alex, almost pretty much every other character, is wary around Jonathan. Sorry, too many Randalls. It doesn't help that the same actor plays Jonathan and Frank Randall.
Yeah.
Alex, loves his brother and sees some kindness in him, and that's why he says, marry my wife. I'm not going to marry her. You marry her, because if she marries me and I die, that's it. she's alone and she's with child too, and so they'll be on the street. But if you marry her, you can take care of her, and if you die, it's because there's a war going on. But if you die, she's entitled to the benefits she would get as your surviving widow. Oh, sorry, which would do a lot better job.
And he technically knows his date of death. Jonathan Randall does, and so he knows that he's not going to live a couple more days past his wedding, anyways.
But he also thinks it's a really stupid fucking plan because he knows he's evil and he doesn't want to do that to the woman that his brother loves, because it doesn't matter. He does a lot of evil things, but he is never mistreated. Yeah, but he's to men too. But he's never mistreated his brother, and so it tears him up inside. Because on one side, his baser wants and desires wants to torture this girl. While at the same time, though, the part of him that is good, the part of him that his brother sees and admires, doesn't want to hurt his brother. In the end, he does agree to it, and they get married right before Alex dies, pretty much, in a pretty emotional scene. Why did you... when Alex dies, Frank actually kind of leaps on top of him and starts striking him. And why do you think he did it? It was just because he was so upset that his brother died, this one good thing in the world that or was it sort of like, a part of me almost wants to think that it's like he always restrained himself. He did it because he loved his brother and everything, but a part of it was now that he's dead, he could let go. And so he can't.
I don't know, I was a little in shock with that. Weird. I haven't gotten that far. Where I am in the book actually is when she loses their first child, and so they're still in France in my book, so they're not back at the war yet. So, or
was it just more of that whole a grief, striking the person, how dare you die on me kind of thing?
Yeah, I guess so. I didn't catch that either. Maybe in the book, just like I've been able to explain a couple other things that weren't just explained well in the show. Maybe when I get there, I'll be able to explain better. But yeah, as I was as taken back as you were. Yeah. By that.
And I kind of liked it because it sort of humanized him a little bit. It sort of made him even this monster can have a good side. It kind of was I compare everything. I do a lot of comparing Outlander to Game of Thrones because they are pretty similar.
They're competitors.
They are competitors for the same kind of market, except one is more geared to women, the other is more geared to guys.
I like both.
Yes, you can. That's why I like Outlander, but you can't deny that they have certain demographics they're going for. Okay.
Although Rob Stark's
Frank Randall reminds me a lot of Ramsay Bolton in that they're just these just evil bastards who just like hurting people, and that's pretty much it. But the one thing
sadist. She called Jamie a sadist in season 1 when he was spanking her for disobeying him. But really, if you want to put that label on someone, it's going to be Jonathan Randall.
Fair enough. But
he gets off on it.
Yes. The difference, though, between those two characters is that Frank's relationship... Sorry, Frank. God damn it. There's just too many Randalls. Jonathan's relationship with his brother, Alex, makes him a little human. It makes him less like a supervillain and more like a real human. A real disturbed human, but a human nonetheless.
Yes.
You really don't see that too much with Ramsay Bolton. He had a good relationship with that one girl, which I can't remember her name now, but she was just as much of a sadist as he was, so it didn't really count in my eyes. And even after she died, he was like, just feed her body to the dog, it'll be fine. It's just again, it didn't make me see him as anything other than just this caricature, of a human being. With Jonathan, you saw him as a human more. Yes, a very disturbed human who needs help, but a human nonetheless. And that makes him a much more interesting character in my opinion. So we probably should wrap this up because usually I have to go do something. So, any final thoughts?
Okay, so my final thoughts are that I'm going to keep going with Outlander. I'm very happy with where it's going. I have a couple shows that I am on season 2 of, and I've decided to walk away from them for whatever reason, and Outlander is not one of them. I'm going to keep going for the long haul. I'm going to finish the book, hopefully in the next week or two, because now I'm really excited to see the difference. And I'm going to check out Amazon Prime tomorrow. That's their Prime Day, and hopefully people can go on your blog and then go through it to get us some cash by using the Amazon Prime Day, and maybe consider purchasing the book, the coloring book, the cookbook, a couple things, and enjoy some Scottish culture and stories through Amazon.
I actually like this season better than the last one. The last one, I feel like they didn't know exactly where they were taking this, and there were some silly moments spread throughout it. This one, though, they kept things a lot more serious, and I actually really enjoyed that.
But there wasn't enough naked Jamie in this season.
Fair enough. There wasn't enough naked Jamie in this. So it was. If you need a break from, if you need something to watch when Game of Thrones is on a break, definitely check out Outlander. I look forward to season 3, but I think that's it for me. I'm Ed Mitchell, the alternate historian. This is Alana. If you guys like what we do, please comment, subscribe, share this video, or donate to our GoFundMe page that we have for our adoption. We're about to actually mail the final paperwork for our home study. Doesn't mean the home study's over, but it's getting close. So please,
we're excited.
It's very excited.
But we need the funds to back it up.
So yes, we do. So please consider donating if you get the chance. If you like this, and if you do like it, we'll keep making more videos. You guys know who we are. Bye.
Bye.